Greetings and salutations to all you folks out there. We're doing the UEF tournament today. It is King of UEF, so everybody that chooses to participate is going to be duking it out over a King of Avatar and the bragging rights that come along with it. So to start off, we have a little bit of a mismatch. I didn't realize quite how far apart the rankings were on this particular match, but we will get through it. We'll do a little observation of hopefully some good gameplay from Wounded Elk and maybe a bit of a surprise from Coldbox, and then we'll move on to the second round of the tournament. The aforementioned Wounded Elk noob is, of course, the UEF. On the left side of the map, he has gone first land factory, second mass extractor, and then is moving over just a little bit here to grab another mass extractor, then move to the front. The map is Theta Passage 5, and this is a bit of an odd one because it kind of has the same starting build as the original Theta Passage, but the map itself is bigger. It is kind of quadrupled instead of split for symmetry along one axis, and so you are going to have more mass extractors at your disposal on a little bit larger playing field, so you're not going to be quite as constricted as you are on Thetas. Observation for Coldbox, always use these things as a learning opportunity. You'll notice that instead of placing waypoints to build his mass extractors, he is walking. And that means that he's spent about, I don't know, 8-10 seconds walking in between these two mass extractors and building, when he could have taken about 3 steps and then built those from the edge of his build range. So that is something to make sure that you're doing. You can see how much farther along Wounded Elk is in his build as opposed to Coldbox. That is absolutely critical to take advantage of in the early portion of the game. I am basically in this to watch the build orders and hopefully get a lesson out of it. Wounded Elk going for a bit of adjacency on an air factory over this away. He is moving his ACU up to the center. That's going to give him a little bit of manual reclaim right over here, and he can pick up the mass extractors on the edge before moving to the true middle of the map. Then we've got a raid headed up to the north side, which should poke its head around the back edge of the map and potentially get into the rear build space. Coldbox is, of course, still moving around and is now building a large quantity of point defense. Oh my goodness. This is a hell of a matchup right here. That is for sure. We have got the third land factory going down for Wounded Elk. Now, one thing that I would be cautious about if you're trying to copy this build is to get enough mass online early through reclaim to support this, because we do have only, I think, 5-6 mass extractors online right now, going for 7 and 8 at the moment. So these factories are consuming 100% of the mass from the mass extractors already gained. So you've got the manual reclaim from the ACU, and then also this engineer reclaiming these nice little clumps of rocks, 10 mass in each one of those, as well as additional engineers spreading out around. So that is how you float your eco in this early portion. Looks like Mech Marine spam is the name of the game for Coldbox. I'm not sure why on earth he is building. Okay, so he's healing his engineer up after building a T1 anti-air. I think he may have gotten stiffed a couple of times by an early T1 bomber and has decided that instead of dying to such a thing, he is going to build himself a large quantity of railguns and forego the traditional factories for execution. And of course, Wounded Elk, having seen exactly what is going on over there, he is now diving in with his ACU, and he is going to try to finish this as quickly as possible, which is always the best way to do things when you've got many, many games ahead of you. That's going to be factory numero 5, or numero 5 if you want to stick with the actual thing I was going for there. That is going to continue pumping tanks out, and basically he just needs to get enough units online to swarm the ACU, and that is going to be GG, because he has, what do you want to say that is? About 93% map control currently? Kudos to Coldbox for getting up the courage to get into a tournament. That is something that a lot of people don't do at all. It is kind of a shame that he was up against a 1600 at the very start of it. I think the only thing that we can hope for here is that he builds a huge quantity of T1 point defense, and then Wounded Elk locks his ACU directly into them. And that could actually spell a win for him. Maybe he's only played the EQ bot before. Maybe that's why he's spamming the labs, because he thinks that this is EQ. Oh no, no, he's going for a T2 land factory. He's gonna go pillar spam. Pillar rush for the win. Although with the Hydra offline, he's not really gonna have any substantial amount of power to save himself with. And I think that is all she wrote. The tanks are simply on a move order from the factory into the opponent's base. And that is pretty much GG. All of that anti-air is going to go to complete waste, seeing as there is not even a single air unit online. Oh, for shame, for shame. But Coldbox, again, kudos for trying. Kudos for jumping into the tournament, taking a swing at it. Alas, it was just not meant to be. What if he had insane lab micro, says WTF Boom in the chat. Yeah, that would be something. It would be something after all. Gotta pause on that while he's trying to get his cannon online. Thing of note, if you reclaim the wrecks around you, you might be able to get that thing online, but I don't think it's gonna do you any good. We got T1 artillery in the mix. The units have now surrounded him, and that is going to be GG. Yes, labs equal light assault pods. Thank goodness for T2 factory upgrades. We really needed those online. Oh, the game is so buttery smooth. I forget how good Subcom looks when I'm not in a massive team game where the UI is hitching and the frame rate has dropped and everything is going to hell. It actually looks quite good in here. I don't think Wounded Elk is even going to drop below 75% HP. He will with the nuke, of course. But that is G. 7 minutes to the win. Well played, Wounded Elk. Hopefully everybody got a little bit of a peek into what makes a good build order on that. And again, I hope Coldbox goes back and watches this and sees what this build looks like, maybe picks up a couple of pointers from the earliest portion there, and hopefully has a long and prosperous career in FAF ahead of him. Onward to round 2 in the tournament. This was going to be on the map Hollow, which I have never actually seen before. This is going to be a new experience for all of us. If we shift control, we can see the reclaim heat map here. Lots of groupings of 10 mass rocks for both players, right and left of center. Then we've got Hydro directly out front, 5 mass extractors in the base with 2 more to the expansions close by, and then the rest of this is going to be pretty much up for grabs on map control. So spam is going to be important as always, and this is a relatively small map, so you gotta keep an eye on how many tanks your opponent has. On the left hand side, we've got Momochia. That is, of course, a UEF player, since this entire faction is going to be, or this entire tournament is going to be UEF faction, I should say. A little bit of a slip there. First land factory, 3 power generators after, and a mixture of mexes in between. Looks like QFWFQ, who is supposedly Thomas Hiet. I'm going to call him Thomas because that is a nightmare of pronunciations. He is in the gray color on the right side, and it looks like he's going for a relatively rushed T1 air factory. We do have a attack move order on this engineer that is going to suck up some of these trees out here for a bit of power to go into the bank. We can actually flip over here and see exactly how much that is. You can see what he's reclaiming. That is 50 mass on, or 50 power, sorry, on the reclaim there. More than enough to float the early needs for this air factory. So we'll have to see what exactly he is doing as the game moves on, but I am kind of sensing there's a little bit of a tingling in the air that smells like T1 bombers. Momo has got a scout out, actually a triplet of scouts. Those are going to go center, left, and right, it would appear. And on the right-hand side, we've got a tank and a scout guarding the expansioneer on this side. And that is, of course, a bit of a critical thing, because if you do lose engineers in the earliest portions of the game, it can set you back by a massive, massive amount. Very frustrating to deal with. And there are mech marines coming out as well for Momo Uchiha, so I think that he is indeed going to try to go for some of this stuff on the outside edge. I would strongly encourage people to build the labs before the land scouts in most cases. Of course, if you do want to get scouts out early to go and kind of pin down locations and get radar coverage out and about, we can actually click here and see exactly where those scouts are. They are covering most of the channels of access that people would take. That is an entirely different use case for a scout, but if you are rushing to get across the map, you got to remember that the land speed of scouts is higher than that of mech marines. So if you build the mech marine first, the scout will catch up as the mech marine is already on the way to the location, whereas if you build the scout first, you lose 4 or 5 seconds, counting the build and the roll-off time for that land scout. Early Bomber was the name of the game indeed. Thomas has got one out to the southern side of the map that is going to pin this engineer El Pronto, eliminating that potential for reclaim. An interesting thing to note, the Bomber actually eliminates the wreckage of the engineer as well. I never realized that before. The napalm burns the wreck to the ground, and then there's no more mass to be had. Oh, this is going to be bad. How many engineers can we get? 1, 2, 3, 4, almost 5. Number 5 and number 6 retreating on fire, only to get hit a second time around. No, that is going for the power. There is an interceptor out, though. The bomber is not long for this world. Not quite going to get the bombs out required to drop that power generator, but in the end, Thomas is still going to come out ahead in air. He's got 3 interceptors to 1 for Momo. Thankfully, a T1 stationary anti-air comes online just in time to save that son of a gun from certain doom. I'm going to go ahead and turn off the betting. I hope everybody has got their bets in that wanted to participate. All right, interceptors under fire from 1 from Momo. Usually you don't see a 1 versus 2 going too terribly well, but then again, when that inti can pursue the entire length of the map, you do come out ahead in most cases. That inti is going to get double teamed here, though, actually triple teamed and eliminated with extreme prejudice. The family will get vengeance after all, it would appear. Okay, so we've got a couple of strikers meeting with this mech marine on the south side. Mech marine will bypass, though. It looks like it might get. Nope, it is going to stop. Shame on that. He could have picked up the engineer kill there, but is, alas, going to fail completely. Thomas has moved his ACU up to the front line. He is sitting in the center here amidst what appear to be a pretty numerous quantity of 5 mass rocks. If they don't show up on your control shift, that means that more than likely they're 5 mass individuals. I think it has to be 10 mass at a minimum to show up on the heat map. Momo is now moving up, but he is moving to the Hydro. Kind of an odd build that he had going on there. When we take a look at the factory count, we've got 4, 8, and an air factory for a total of 9, while on the other side, number 6 is going down. Only 5 of those being land factories. That is a bit disheartening to see. Looks like Momo is going to get straight out spammed on this run, although he is going to double up on the air factory, so in a little bit he might be able to take air control back from his opponent. Now this is looking pretty good as far as numbers go. On the other side of the map, though, Thomas has roughly double the amount of tanks, able to split between the north and the south and defend both aptly. I think the time for T1 point defense may have arrived on this side. Thomas, if you were able to get a T1 PD online in the neck right here, he would be able to deny, since all of these are tanks, there's not a single T1 mobile artillery in the entire mix. but unfortunately he doesn't have the build power there to take care of that issue. T1 Bomber will have to suffice, as well as redirecting the T1 tanks that he has at his disposal. Now, another thing that you'll see between these two bases as far as a differential is that, ooh, that is a sexy, sexy T2 HQ online for Thomas. That means he's running a 10 mass surplus and a T2 HQ. If Momo doesn't do something extremely drastic very, very soon, he is going to lose this game. We have a T2 mass extractor online in the core base. This is a tempting proposition when you have a bunch of reclaim right nearby, but it is a faulty one, because if you do not get enough land spam up early, that T2 mass extractor doesn't do you any good. The map control wins every single time when your opponent can control 5 to 6 more mass extractors than you do. This T2 Mex is only worth 6 income, which is 3 T1 Mexes. So just these 3 right here, if Thomas is able to secure them, will counteract that T2 mass extractor. No problemo. Momo's got his ACU in a pretty good spot right here. He's got the factory to meat shield for his commander. He could sit there and do damage. Q has approximately 14 tanks in the area with another 4 to the north. Not enough to straight up kill the ACU, but definitely enough to threaten it. Throw the factory into the mix, and I think that Momo would have been fine, and he would have been better off sticking with it, trying to save the factory and killing off as many tanks as possible. Engagement on the north, of course, even given equal numbers of tanks, if there's an ACU in the mix for the other side, you are in a losing position. 2 engineers on this side might need to start building some wall sections just to trip up the pathfinding of Thomas, because if you're able to slow down the progress of the units headed in your direction, in a lot of cases you can buy yourself the time you need to get a full counter. As far as total tanks on the map, looks like we've got 9 pillars so far with 58 T1 tanks. Momo, I'm sure, is looking a bit more depressing with 25 tanks and 14 artillery. It is make it or break it time. There is still a chance, a very small chance, but a chance, that Momo could bring this back with a very strategic gun upgrade or some such thing that he could stick on his ACU and use that to put pressure on, gain a reclaim field, and move on with his life. He has quite a significant amount of power and definitely has the ability to overcharge. He's overflowing by about 275 to 300 depending on exactly where his expenditures are. And he has, holy smokes, a lot of energy storage, enough for 2 sequential overcharges, by which time he only has to regenerate 100 power before he can plant overcharge number 3. So he could indeed mow his way through every single one of these T2 tanks with just the power that he has in storage, and then be able to move on free. Disadvantage being, if you overcharge a unit, you usually erase the wreck that is underneath it. Why are you going for T2? The gun upgrade would be so much more effective in this. Also, to the north, we're seeing a little bit of a run-by from Thomas. Might put Momo in a bit of a pickle. Point defense only does you so much good when the units can run all the way around the outside edge, but thanks to the factories that he does have in the home base, he will be able to eliminate that threat reasonably quickly, and that will just give him a little bit more reclaim to work with. Very speedy gun upgrade going down on Thomas. Heavy assistance there. Probably stalling out like a mofo, and indeed he is. But that is just going to add to the problems for Momo. I wonder why the T2 was canceled on that. I didn't see exactly what happened there. I think probably these were looking a little too aggressive. We've got a T1 bomber that's already killed a mass extractor there. Interceptors patrolling on this edge without ever interacting with the bomber. We do have a couple going for it now, but that is far too little and too late to be a real assistance with the situation. At this point, I would love to see an ACU dive against these units and then just picking up the reclaim. Speaking of reclaim, let's go take a look, see at what's going on. We've got 5,700 for Q and 26 for Momo. All in all, not a good position to be in. T2 mass extractor number 2 is online for Momo. I don't see an upgrade for an additional though. Q has gone for his own upgrades. He's now sitting on 2 of his own. I think, yes, 3 of his own. So again, the superior map control giving him lots and lots of mass with which to do dirty, dirty things. Momo is at half the eco of Thomas, and that is unfortunate, let me tell you. If the ACU was in the north, we might have a chance of defending right here, staving off the inevitable doom for just a little bit longer. But then again, if he moved to the north, these units would be free to bypass, and then we would be in an entirely different kind of bad situation. I'm just hoping that Momo has some kind of plan here. He's going for T2 again. He's on about 10%. The question is whether or not he can hold out long enough for that to actually make a difference. Theoretically speaking, he could get a tac launcher online and hit up. Looks like Thomas has not built even a single T2 engineer yet. He has gone strictly for pillar spam. If you get a tac launcher up and double tack the HQ to get rid of the T2, then start tacking out the eco, you might be able to make a difference. But I think as we see the number of units collapse on this edge in the face of the almighty pillar, it is not looking too good. You need to get some T1 point defense up over here ASAP, otherwise all of this is going to collapse with nothing to save it. And I think that is exactly what we are going to see right here. The other problem is Thomas has uncovered for himself a large quantity of reclaim right there in the center. He's already got engineers out on the case picking that up. T1 bombers coming in to try and deny, but to be honest, pillars simply have too much HP to be able to kill them with those bombers in any reasonable amount of time. Also, the interceptors have sat on the ground, and the AA pillars were able to kill off quite a fair number. Looks like Momo is just taking the loss here, under fire from a vast quantity of pillars. At least with his death, he has hurt the enemy units quite badly, taking about 25 to 30 tanks with him in his doom. But that is not what matters, since Thomas is going to walk into the base victorious and take the win in round 2. So Momo's gonna drop to the losers bracket. QFWFQ, for whatever reason he named himself that, is moving on to round 3. All right, we're gonna go ahead and watch another game from round 2. This was gonna be Jonas versus Morax. The Jonas on the right, Morax on the left. Now that we have a little bit of experience with this map and we've seen a couple of build orders, we can take a look-see at these folks and see how they match up to the game that we saw previously, and also see if we can glean a little bit of insight into how best to play this map. Jonas on the right has gone first land factory, which is, of course, pretty traditional. He's also going for some raids. He got a mech marine out first of all, with an engineer shortly following it up. And then a bit of an odd power build. I'm not sure why he didn't build up here just a little ways in order to get full adjacency. Maybe he'll bump his power generators around later on, but I know not. He has first land, second air though, mass extractors in between all the P-gens, and then he does have manual reclaim out. I did not even notice this earlier on. There's 10 mass rocks right here next to the base that you can suck up to give yourself a little bit of a boost, make up for that lack of the extra mass extractor on that side. Morax on the left has also gone for first land, building a conglomeration of power generators around a future T1 air factory, and then he's already got an additional land factory queued with the ACU, in addition to putting out 2 mech marines. So those are going to run out to the extreme right and extreme left, going straight for the reclaim piles and the 2 mass extractors potential over here. So that is going to hopefully pick up an engineer and prevent it from doing its job of getting in all that extra mass to push out early game units. This engineer is going to be assisted by a T1 tank though, so hopefully that can deny the aggression early. We do have another scout out, and then shifting back to engineers. That scout is going to tag along with the engineer on that side. Would not be surprised at all if Jonas did queue a couple more T1 tank scout pairs. That would appear to be the case after one more engineer, and then we've got infinite engineers on the factory. Morax on the other side has got a dearth of units queued in this factory. Why? There we go. So 2 tank scout, 2 engineers, 2 tank scout, engineer, tank, and a bunch of NGs. Trying to get some stuff out early, and then we have bomber followed by scout NT on the air factory. I don't know what Jonas is going to queue quite yet. That looks like scout NT's then bomber. So he's going for a bit more of a defensive build, but he is a bit behind. So the bomber may still have the potential of killing off a few extremely valuable units before it gets knocked down. The disadvantage of assisting a tank to an engineer is that the engineer usually ends up in front of the tank. So while it is a good idea to do this and the tank will follow the engineer around, the engineer ends up meat shielding for the tank behind it, and that is a bit of micro from Morax, saving that mech marine alive as the Snoop makes it into the back of the base and is able to set up radar coverage on that edge. I would love to see that go down. It's trailing fire behind it as it runs, reminding me of something out of an anime as it tears across the landscape. On the left-hand side, though, tit for tat, Jonas is lying in wait for the engineer coming from Morax that is going to get knocked down, forcing the requeuing of another expansioneer down to the southern expansions. It's going to cause a little bit of a problem for Morax. Bomber coming in, though, taking out the tank, engineer, and scout. No, 9 HP remaining. That tank is going to stay alive. And the bomber's going to have to take another pass. Jonas pulling out his interceptors to try and get that thing down. Bomber out in search of another engineer. That was a desperate mistake right there. It is going to get knocked down pretty quickly. And that is all she wrote on that front. Mech Marine from Jonas still alive and pulling back out towards the center of the map. Very cool to see that thing get an engineer kill and come away clean. If he shot up to the north, he might even be able to get a second one before he gets pinned. This scout is going to tag it, though, and if Morax is paying attention, he will move up to the north, but it appears that he was not. So that Mech Marine is going to get away scot-free and go on a direct intersect course for the engineer to the north. Jonas being very effective indeed in his early game unit micro. Let me go ahead and shut down the betting on this match, seeing as we are pretty far into it. Hope everybody got their bets in that wish to do so. All right, Morax on 5 land factories queued. This one did not, of course, finish, but hopefully he will get it online quickly enough. Jonas ahead by 6 mass per tick in the earliest portion, and I think he also has a significant unit advantage on the map, mostly due to having 5 land factories complete, and then he's also going for the Hydra up on the front line and dropping an air factory on it. So I think what we're seeing here is a bit of a superior build on this side. Morax went for the Hydra a lot earlier with fewer power generators in the base and is having to catch up in other areas, whereas Jonas powered through his early production line to get all these factories online and producing as quickly as he possibly could, resulting in a pretty substantial unit count advantage on the map. And then he went for his Hydra later to be queued with an air factory. Let's actually get an exact count. We've got 20 tanks and an arty. Morax on the other side has got 14 tanks and 4 arties. Plus Jonas is going to get an even stronger grip on air control as the game moves forward. So quite a brilliant build there for Jonas. Morax, though, has the tendency of picking up slack later on in the game, so I would not by any means whatsoever deem this a strong lean in one direction or the other. Morax is up 2 mass per tick, 21 to 19, behind a little bit in score, but both of these guys are exactly even on power levels. Transport coming out for Jonas. What on earth is that about, and how are you not power stalling like all get out? In fact, he is. He needs to get some tree reclaim on this side and get some more power generators built, because 320 is not enough power to run that many factories, especially when 2 of them are air factories. You're sucking down 80 per tick on both the air factories, just those alone's consuming half the power grid. Morax on the other side doing a bit better on his power level. He can afford to spend a little bit more mass, a little reclaim, and still have some headroom. Over on the right, the signature tie for Jonas going down next to the radar. Got a point defense in the way to hopefully prevent any run-bys through that channel. And Jonas building with a couple of engineers on his power grid. Let's take a look again at this. 7 and 27. That is looking much better balanced. Quite good indeed. So glad he could save that situation. So, about that transport, what do we got going on here? Oh my goodness, we are going to see a ghetto gunship. This makes me happy! It's been a long time since I've seen an actual ghetto gunship play in a tournament. Oh, but how many inties do we have here? We have got 8 interceptors versus 6 interceptors, and the interceptors are not near the transport. Oh no, Jonas had a few more inties on this edge as well. He just didn't have his air collected. So he does have enough air indeed to stop Morax from killing that transport. He's just got to figure out where to put it to the best use. In the northern edge, Jonas being very effective with his raiding. He's killed off mass extractors here, helped free up the northern edge. Is going to kill off another mass extractor on this quadrant, and then move his tanks hopefully back into his own territory to get away from this grouping. Morax is still at 25 mass per tick though, holding superior map control through it all, and this southern raid is going to be a bit dangerous. Jonas has got a few of his units over to the right unused that he needs to shift into combat very, very soon. If these were on the front line, he would have the overwhelming advantage in unit counts and would be able to sweep this and get into the build power on this edge. But as things are sitting now, he's in a bit of a pickle for map control. It's not the end of the world right this second, but as the game moves on, we are going to see more and more issues crop up as these raiding units get into places where they're not supposed to be. The ghetto gunship was a very ambitious move, a cool thing to do, and it did end up winning Jonas strong air control, but I can't help but think that that APM could have been better used sorting some of this other business out and getting everything on the map in the proper location. Something that I'm saying with Jonas as opposed to Morax, Morax is in constant control of the majority of his units and being able to push them into every area that he needs to. Jonas has got arguably the better build in the early game and definitely isn't losing out too terribly much right now. But I think he doesn't have as much APM as Morax. So as the game moves on, as his early game tricks flag, he is starting to run into issues micromanaging this quantity of units on this entire landscape. Hopefully he can pull it together. He is getting a gun upgrade in place. He's got to pick up that bomber before his other things go down. Morax is running 36 mass to his 19. That is mostly due to many T1 mechs coming online in various sections of the map, while Jonas has not been able to secure his southern passage or the middle. Morax technically doesn't have a lot more map control. He's just very quickly bringing online the mass extractors in the areas that he is able to access. Jonas is going to be in a lot of trouble here. Morax pushing up, and he has quite a few tanks with him. If this ACU comes under fire in this situation, Jonas will die. And at the very least, if he does escape, he'll be forced to pull out of his gun upgrade. He did lose his radar up here, so he has no idea what all these units are doing. If we click over to Morax, Morax is also lacking on radar coverage, but he has so many units in so many different areas on the map that he has a pretty good picture of what is going on. Jonas, on the other hand, blank space. He has absolutely no clue that there's about 30 T1 units immediately to his northern edge, along with the commander. Although Morax, does Morax even have intel on that? Yes, he does. He knows that the ACU is there, and he knows that the ACU is alone. Jonas up on 80% for the gun upgrade. He's bringing in his own units that'll hopefully free the commander. Morax choosing to go the run-by route instead of going after the ACU, and Jonas, I think, is doomed. No, he had to cancel the gun upgrade at 95%. That is such a shame, but he doesn't have the unit count to handle this amount of forces, and that's mostly due to the additional land factories that came online for Morax up there on the northern edge. Did Jonas have that scouted? Yes, he did, and he was going for the build power kill, but oh man, that was a good game. That was a very good game, a pleasure to watch. Morax a little bit weaker in the early game, but man, he was able to bring so much stuff online. If we control shift, here's the reason for it. None of this reclaim was ever gotten by Jonas. We've got slow claims on the T1 mass extractors around the outside edge. Overall, just a little bit low on the APM side of things, I think. He has gotten a lot better at doing early builds. Jonas is a force to be reckoned with, to be sure. He's beaten my butt several times on the ladder. But I think that he's stronger in the early game and flags out towards the late game. Something that comes into its own with practice. You gotta get the mental fortitude to keep up that APM. Well played to both these guys. Morax advancing to the next round in the winner's bracket. Jonas dropping to the losers. And that, folks, is GG. That is going to wrap everything up for this video, guys. If you enjoyed it, feel free to drop a like and share it with someone. If you want to support the channel, catch the streams, or join the Discord, check out the links in the description. Thank you all for being at least partially insane, and I will see you in the next one.